it's Christy. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to day 19 of my 2022 holiday card series. Today I'm going to be making a card using Hello Bluebird's Page Turner, Cozy Christmas Eve, and Oh Christmas Tree. So I've stamped those images out on Spectrum Noir Ultra Smooth Premium White cardstock with Lawn Fawn Jet Black ink, and I'll be coloring with my Copic markers. So just to warn you, there is going to be a lot of Copic coloring in today's video. I really wanted to create this particular scene, and so I've got a lot of images to cover. So if that's your thing, yay, you're going to be really excited. If Copic coloring isn't your thing, this might not be the video for you, but anyway. I'm going to start with my little girl's skin, and I'm using E000, E00, and E11 for that. You could also give her some bare legs, but I decided to give her some tights since this is a winter scene, so I'll be coloring those differently later on. I'm also going to give her some rosy cheeks with RV10 and RV11. And then while I have those two pink shades out, I'm also going to do one of these little baubles up in the top. I'm going to add in RV00 to have a third shade in there and make that a little bit lighter. And I did go over that a second time to make the blend a bit more smooth. Then I'm also going to color in her little bunny slippers to be pink, so I'm going to use these same three shades, adding that RV11 to the back of the heel and the sides of the ears, and then pulling forward toward the face with the RV10, and then adding a little highlight at the tip with the RV00. And I'm also going to just color the inside in with just that RV00. And then I'll come down and do one of the bows on my gift wrap with these shades. I'm going for a very different color palette for today. I've been doing a lot of more traditional red and greens. So today I'm doing some Christmas pastels. So I decided to make her a blonde, and I'm going with E50, E51, E53, and a little E55 for that. Now, if you've been watching my channel for any length of time, you know that I prefer to color darkest to lightest, and the exception to that rule is when I'm coloring hair. If I'm coloring hair, I like to start as light as possible and build my way up to the darkest and then work back down. So I started with the E50, and I'm laying in where my shadows are eventually going to go, or for her hair, it's more like low lights. So I'm going to just kind of draw in some extra lines, follow the artist drawn lines in a few of the places, and just add a few flicks of color, not going very far in and keeping those strokes very narrow right now. So I've built my way up to the E53, and that's as far as I'm going to go on the first layer. I don't want her hair to get too dark right off the bat. This combo can really easily transition into a brunette as well. So I'm going to keep it nice and light by working my way back down. So I'm using the E51 now to pull out that E53 a bit further, getting a little bit longer with my strokes and kind of connecting these little strands a bit more. So I'm doing the same with the E50, and then I'll stop and assess and see if I want any more color. And actually you could leave it as it was, but I wanted just a touch of that E55 in there to add a bit more depth. So I'm going in with just a few strokes of that, very, very thin, and just using the tip of the marker to do that and adding it wherever I feel like it should go. And then instead of working my way all the way back down again, I'm just jumping straight back to the E50 to just go over it and soften it a bit into the rest of the hair. And I could go on, but there's a lot of images to cover today, so I'm going to leave it at that, and I think it looks pretty good. So I'm going to move on to the picture frame, and I'm going to start with E55 for that. I'm going to add the E53 to blend that out on the one side, and then on the other side I'll save some room for E51. And then I'm also going to do the pages of her book with the E51. I'm going to add in E57 to darken up this combo to do the trunk of the tree. And I'll blend that out with the E55 and then the E53. And I could have done the bottom of the chair at this point, but I just forgot to do it. So I'm going to have to come back to these browns again later on. But I did decide that I wanted a little bit more darkness in that frame. So I did go back and add a bit of that E57 in there. I'm also going to use the E51 blended out with the E50 to add a little color to my teacup and to color in the bunny in this little picture frame. And then I'll go back to my E57 to add a little bit of hot cocoa into the teacup. So then I'm going to move on to W00, W1, W3, and W5, and I'm going to start to work on the chair. The chair is really big, and so it does take a fair bit of time to color. I'm going to break it down into a few sections to do at a time, just so it's not overwhelming. And I'm going for a gray chair. So I have gray chairs in my sitting room, and one of my favorite Christmas pastimes is to sit and read next to the Christmas tree. It's just something that I really look forward to every year. Just taking a little bit of time, even if it's only 10 minutes at the end of the night, and just sitting down next to the twinkly lights. I just feel like it makes the story even more magical, the one that I'm reading. And I love that. So I decided to do these warm gray chairs because that's the chair that I have next to my tree. Even though I'm not creating me exactly, I don't have a cat, I'm allergic, and I'm not blonde, I have reddish brown hair. So I didn't want it to be like, exactly me, but I did borrow the gray chair from the tiny little sitting room at the front of my house where our tree is in front of the front window. So I'm going to continue coloring this, and I'm just going to color in solid for today. I really wanted to do some patterns on today's project, but I got nervous about how long the video was going to end up being because of all the images there were to color. And I know a lot of you guys say you don't mind the longer videos, but it's a hard time of year to be able to take time away from all the stuff that we're doing and sit down and watch a video. So I just didn't want to overwhelm anybody and be like, oh, I don't have time to watch that, because it's just too long. So I decided to keep things fairly simple today. But anyway, if you want to see this chair colored with a pattern, I do have an everyday video. It's not a Christmas video, but I have an everyday scene using this chair where I did a big floral pattern, and people really seemed to like that. I really liked how it turned out as well. So yeah, you can go ahead and check that out if you're interested. So reading next to the Christmas tree is one of my favorite Christmas pastimes, but I would love to hear from you guys what your favorite Christmas pastimes are. And I'm not talking about like the big traditions like Christmas caroling or giving gifts or, any of that. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about like, is there any like little special tradition that you do that is just for you? Maybe like after the rest of the family has gone to bed or while they're out of the house, just something that you do to kind of claim a little bit of peace during the holidays, because they can be so hectic. There's just so many things going on, people to visit, things to do. And I just am like craving other little things that, that you can just take a moment for yourself and kind of bask in the holidays. So if you have something like that you love doing, please leave me a comment down below. Alright, so I finished the chair and I'm moving on to the little kitty. I left out the W3, but I didn't end up using it. I just used the W1 for my shadows and then blended out with the W00. I decided to go with a nice like white kitty. I thought that was appropriate for the holidays and just really fit with my color palette as well. And then of course I had to give the kitty some rosy cheeks and color the inside of his ears and his nose. So I'm going to do that with the RV10 and RV11 again. And then I'm going to move over to my polar bear and just use that W00 and W1 again. You could do it any bear, but I just decided to do a polar bear because it's a winter scene. And then I use the W1 to add some shading to my candy canes, and then also to color in the top part of all of the ornaments and the rim around the edge of the bunny slippers, and then one of the tags. I'm also going to give her a little white shirt and cuff that is underneath her sweater, using those two shades, and some white socks. So I did use both of those to just add a little bit of extra shadow on there. And then I decided to go with a silver star for my tree topper. I didn't want to introduce any yellow into this color palette, so I just decided to go with silver. I actually have a poinsettia tree topper. I don't know what you guys have. I always think it's interesting to hear what people put on top of their tree. Mine's just a poinsettia, and it's not even actually a tree topper. It's just a large silk flower that I got when I used to work at AC Moore, and I attach it with a pipe cleaner. But it's sparkly, so anyway, I'm going to give her a little aqua sweater using BG11, BG32, and BG34. And once I'm done with that, I'm also going to do a few other little accessories. I'll do another one of the little Christmas baubles, and I'll do the gift wrap on the gift with the pink bow. So I'm just starting down at the bottom with the BG34 for that, and then blending up with the BG32. And then I decided to use the BG11 as the highlight shade, which blends nicely with these other two shades. And I am also going to do another one of the bows on the other stack of gifts. I also decided to do the background in the picture that's going to be hanging on the wall, so I just used the lightest two shades for that so it can look like a sky. And then I'm moving on to just a slightly lighter combo. So I kept the BG32, took away the BG34, and then added in the BG10, and I'm giving her some little leggings to match her sweater. And then I had to come back to my browns to do the bottom of the chair like I mentioned earlier. I just forgot to do it. But since I was going to go back to the combo, I just decided to kind of make it a little bit different by darkening it up a bit. So I added in the E59, and I put that up under the cushions and then on the inside of the legs. And then I'm blending toward the outer edge of the legs with the E57, and then the E55 will fill everything in. And then I went back and forth on what color to do the book, but I decided to just do it with this dark brown combo because I wanted to tie in that E59 somewhere else in the scene. And I do read a lot of vintage books as well. I collect vintage books, so it made sense to me. So I'm going to move on now to some hot pink, and I'm going to use RV11, RV13, and RV14. So I'm putting the RV14 down at the back and then blending toward the front of her skirt with RV13 and then an RV11. It could also be shorts if you wanted it to be, but in my mind I made it a little skirt. Maybe she just came home from a holiday party and made herself a nice cup of cocoa and curled up in her favorite chair with the book that she's reading next to the Christmas tree, and is just ready to unwind a little bit. That sounds perfect to me, being an introvert. You know, I do love to see people and everything, but it does take a lot out of me. So by the time I get home, I am ready to have a little bit of quiet time. So that sounds just absolutely wonderful. So I did another bauble and a gift, and then I decided to do my candy cane with this darker pink as well, because once again I wanted to stick to a more pastel color palette. I didn't want to introduce any red. So I'm just using RV14 and then blending out with RV13, and my RV13 looked like it might leak, so I just pulled the other cap off and that fixed it. Next I'm going to add in some purples, and I'm using V91, V93, V95, and V99. So it's a bit of a dustier purple, but I think it goes with like more of a winter theme. Even though I was going pastel, I didn't want it to look like spring or Easter. You know, I wanted it to clearly still be the holidays. So I think going with these more desaturated tones for some of the shades just kind of helps bring that home. So I did the gift, and then I'm doing the ribbon on the last gift, and I'm going to do that last Christmas bauble up at the top as well. So I have that color tied in 3 different places. And then I guess I forgot to hit record again, but I did go back and color that last gift with those palest 2 grays, so W00 and W1. So next I'm going to do my Christmas tree, and I'm going to use G00, G02, and G03. I also pulled out G quadruple 0, but I didn't end up using it. I also decided to switch up how I did my shading for the tree. Usually I put the shadows down at the bottom edge of each of the sections, but today I decided to start at the top. That way the one above it would be shading the one below, if that makes sense. So I just broke the tree up into sections again. So I started with the G03 at the very top, and then under each tier, like I said, and then I'm blending out with the G02, and then using that G00 to pull that color toward the ends. So I decided to go with these shades for the Christmas tree because I didn't want anything that was too off-putting with this color palette, and I thought that, you know, these kind of like cooler greens with the kind of bluish hint kind of tied in to the aqua sweater and stuff like that. So that's why I went with these particular shades. And the blend isn't going to be perfect on these. I will do a second layer on the tree off screen just to make sure that everything is really nicely blended and that it looks its nicest. I often will do that second layer, especially on larger objects like this tree, and I did a second layer on the chair as well, because it's just really hard with these larger items to get that blend completely smoothed out the first time when you're still figuring out where your shadows should go. That's one of the great things about Copic markers that I love so much, is that you're able to go over things repeatedly until you reach a look that you like, so long as you don't oversaturate your paper. But if you're using a good quality paper, you shouldn't have that problem. I did use the G02 to add a little Christmas tree to the mug, so it would be holiday themed, and then I went back to E55 to give it a trunk, and RV14 to add some little baubles to it. And then I'm going to grab a black Sakura Jelly Roll pen and go over the eye of my girl after I get it flowing off to the side there. It's going to make it nice and bright and shiny and give it a little bit of a glossy look. And once I'm done with that, I'm going to trim these images out with their matching dies, including the carpet. For the background, I'm taking a piece of Bristol Smooth Surface cardstock, and I'm going to blend on some Distress Oxide ink. I'm going to use some cracked pistachio. I wanted to have something that was similar to the tree, but still a little bit different. So the cracked pistachio is a little bit cooler toned, but it's a bit more yellow than the tree, so the tree should still stand out against it. And I'm just blending very, very softly from the top edges. I want the center of the scene to have a little bit of glow to it, so it almost looks like the tree is lit up, even though there aren't actually any lights on it, but we're just going to pretend. So she needs a little bit of light to be able to read by, so I'm going to leave it softer in the center there. So I'm just going to build up that color slowly, because like I said, I didn't want to leave any like dark marks on the paper with that ink blending tool. So I'm just using very light pressure and adding lots of layers until I'm happy with how it's looking. And I am going to add in a tiny bit of Lucky Clover on the edges. I actually didn't even ink up the pad though. I just used what was left on that ink blending tool from the last time I used it, which was, I don't even know when, probably before winter. But I just used a tiny bit of that to add a little bit of extra depth to the edges of the scene and kind of create that little bit of a vignette there. So once I have all of that laid on, I will go back to my cracked pistachio ink blending tool and just make sure everything is nice and smooth. And then I'm going to pop this into my Misty and stamp my sentiment using VersaFine Onyx Black ink. So I'm stamping out warm and cozy wishes from our home to yours using the Cozy Christmas Eve stamp set. And I am going to stamp that down twice to make sure it's nice and bold. And then I'm going to pop my card base into my Misty. I'm using Lawn Fawn Sage cardstock. And then I'm stamping in Clover ink because it has that blue toned look to it. And this time I'm using a sentiment from Big Christmas Greetings. So first I stamped out the wishing you, and then I grabbed the word joy because I wanted to snug that up close to the wishing you, so I had to stamp it separately. And then I also did a tree from that stamp set as well, just to give it a little extra embellishment there. So now I'm ready to start assembling this card. I'm going to adhere the focal panel to the card base using some liquid glue. I'm using Barely Art Precision Craft Glue, and I'm just going to make sure that it is on there nice and straight, and then smooth that down into place. And then I can bring in my images. You may notice that I didn't create a floor for this card. I decided to just leave it blank for today. I usually like cut out some wood grain paper or whatever, but I knew I was going to have the carpet that was grounding, and I think just having the color kind of fade to the bottom, it gives the illusion of there being like a white floor down there. So I'm going to add the carpet under the Christmas tree so it almost looks like a tree skirt. I'm going to put that over on the right hand side of the card and let that hang off a bit just for spatial issues. And then I'm going to add the tree in the center of that. And then over on the left hand side, I'm going to have the girl in her chair reading. So I'm just trying to make sure that there's about the same amount of space from the edge of the chair, the armrest, to the edge of the card as there is from the farthest edge of the Christmas tree and the edge of the card. So everything is spaced nicely. Then I'll take the stacks of gifts and I'm going to add those around it too. I'm going to put one of them over on the right side of the trunk and then the other one on the left. I'm going to leave a little gap between them for now. Then I'll grab my Cutter Bee Teflon coated scissors and just trim off the excess of that carpet that was hanging over the side. And I'm going to add her bunny slippers below the chair to kind of anchor that down to the ground as well. And then I'll add the kitty so that it is sleeping on the carpet right beneath the tree between the two stacks of gifts. Then I'm going to decorate my tree starting with the star. I'm going to add that to the top. And then I'm going to add the two candy canes. So I'm just going to put one over to the right of the tree, and I'll have one over on the left, and I'm just tilting them a bit to make them look different. And then I'll have the ornaments kind of spaced around the candy canes. So I stamped out 4 of those so that I could make sure that my tree looked fairly nice and full. So I'm just making sure, because I have 2 pink, they're different shades of pink, but they're still both pink, so I didn't want them right next to each other. So I made sure that the aqua and the purple were kind of between them, just to spread that color around in the scene a bit more. Then I'll take the picture frame and add that to fill in the gap between the chair and the tree, so that just looks like it's hanging on the wall. And I'll take the teacup and add that to the armrest. And I also stamped out a little swirl of smoke, or not smoke, but steam, using Lawn Fawn manatee ink, and I'm going to pop that in right above the teacup. Then I wanted to add a bit of stardust stickles so that the card has a bit of shine on it. So I'm going to add it to the tree topper, of course. And at first I started to do what I usually do, which is to only add a little bit and not cover the entire image. But I changed my mind and decided to go full sparkle for this one. So I filled in the entire star and all 4 of the little ornaments. I'm also going to do the bows on the gifts so that they are covered in sparkle. And then I wanted to make her skirt look like it was more festive, so I'm going to give her a sparkly skirt as well. I'm just going to fill that whole thing in. So now she really looks like she just got home from a party. So that is actually going to finish up this card. So I will pick that up to the camera so you can see all of the detail and see how that stickles catches the light. So pretty. And there's another peek at the inside. I really hope you guys enjoyed this one and that you enjoyed hearing about my way that I love to snag a little moment for myself during the holidays. I hope you will leave me a comment down below about your favorite Christmas moments. And if you enjoyed this one, please give it a like. Consider subscribing to my channel. I post new videos every Monday and Friday. All of the products that I use will be listed for you in the description bar below, and if you'd like to keep watching, here is day 19 of the previous 2 years of holiday card series. You can click on either one to check them out. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have an amazing day. Bye-bye.